actuality is only, the past is only these things that have become, but what is continuous is that there's always new possibilities coming through, that until they're actualized, they have a continuity to them. And so the extensive continuum is both continuity and the past as blippy. So let's go to 66 and 67 just. And we'll come back to we're coming back to something in a minute.
So atomic means divisible and discrete and
yeah, you can think of the actual occasion as atomic, as long as you don't mix it up with being an atom.
Yeah.
Because now we know that there's something more basic than atoms. So sometimes the word atomistic is helpful because it sort of keeps you from mixing it up with an atom. But yes, atomic, when he uses it, is at the level of the actual occasion. It's the smallest, most fundamental, I guess, way. It's what we've been talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So on page 66 and 67, there's some good language about the extensive continuum. So right where, let's see, it's where that 103 is, do you see that? So have you been wondering what those little numbers are in there? Those are that, I don't know if you noticed when you bought your book, that there's another really old edition of Process and Reality that exists. It's the one that, this one says corrected edition. There's an uncorrected edition, and it's actually the one that Whitehead wrote. The corrected edition was done by Sherburne and Graham. And so the page numbers are a little bit different. And what they did is they took a bunch of the notes that Whitehead had written in the margins of his book and changed them. And every now and then where they think he made a mistake and meant one thing, but because he never was much of a revisitor. He always wanted to make something new. So that's one reason. If he had gone back, I bet this would be a much shorter book.
Oh, thank God.
Because he's thinking, you know, and actually if you let it be that you're watching somebody's mind at work, it's just it's a privilege, actually. I think that's what a good poem is too, actually, is watching someone's psyche at work, or can be.
So why use the corrected edition?
Because A, is clearer, and B, it has what he wanted. If there was another edition, it's the changes that he wrote in when he was using it and things like that. Yeah. And so at the back there are a bunch of editor's notes, and that has a lot to do. You'll see it just like on 405. It says changed principle to principle, sensations to sensation. Like some of it is changing things that he misspelled or spelled like he used principle. He always misspelled certain words. So some of it is that if you misspell something and you're trying to be this careful with language, it can get really, really confusing. So, but anyway, those numbers are the page numbers in the other edition. So that if you wanted to see the first original edition, the same passage, you would look on that page that's in the brackets. Yeah. Thank God we don't have that, because it's really quite a mess. I mean, it's beautiful, but so where it says 103, there's a definition of the extensive continuum, which is the second sentence there. This extensive continuum is one relational complex in which all potential objectifications find their niche. It underlies the whole world, past, present, and future. So why is it, what part of it is, of the extensive continuum is past?
Occasion.
Yeah, the occasions, that, everything that, history, that which has become. And then what part of the whole world that's in the future does it underlie?
Eternal objects.
The
Yeah,
possibility.
eternal objects and possibility.
Possibilities.
So it's always open-ended because the future hasn't happened yet, and it depends on how it's going to be self-creative. So the extensive continuum actually is it's even more than a reservoir. It's like it's something open-ended. It's like music that isn't written yet is open-ended too. So this is where he says considered in its full generality, which is just as an idea, apart from the additional conditions proper only to the cosmic epoch of electrons, protons, molecules, and star systems, the properties of this continuum are very few and do not include the relationships of metrical geometry. That's where he's saying that he's going to just worry about the cosmic epoch that we are in at this point. He's not trying to generalize for all possible universes.
Who was Whitehead's friends? Because I'm
He had the most interesting friends. What's her name? Oh, I can't think of it. Poet who wrote Tender Buttons. Anybody know? I keep having mind flashes. But yeah, he had very interesting friends, and
Bet he did.
he was very fond of going on walks with people and talking. He was very close to his wife. I think she was kind of his main.
Go brainstormer.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and he was close to his students, and I think they helped him figure out more things.
Because his thinking is very complicated. Can be complicated. And I'm thinking, who were his buddies?
Well, he actually really liked poets and painters too. He had friends who were doing that. That's a really good question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it kind of makes me wonder if he was lonely too. I mean, having all this going on, who do you talk to about it?
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good thing to hold on to, and that's very interesting. So, let's see. If you go over to page 67 at the top, it's very blunt and makes you go, oh, but this is really easy. Actual entities atomize the extensive continuum. So what does that mean to you?
It seems to be an opposition, right? It's making continuum discrete into something that's no longer fully visible.
Yeah, in a way, when he says the whole universe is in each occasion, he's meaning the whole extensive continuum is in each occasion. It atomizes it for that instant, because it's deciding for or against every bit of possibility and every bit of the past in each occasion. It's prehending all of them, but it's deciding what is relevant to it or what it can't ignore. And then a little bit further down, like about 10 lines, there's a line that says, for each process of concrescence, which is each actual entity, for each process of concrescence, a regional standpoint in the world, defining a limited potentiality for objectifications has been adopted. So that is a really interesting word, standpoint. So each occasion has a place in time and space, and it actually makes that time and space, that little blip, it makes it. And that's its standpoint on the whole universe. So a standpoint, also, in order to come to being, a standpoint actually involves what you're leaving out. And in feminist theory about, I guess like in the 70s, the word standpoint was used a lot as a way to understand context. That to have one standpoint means you can't universally see everything from that point. And so that's the same thing as an actual occasion coming into being. It doesn't really express the whole universe because it's decided what's important to it in order to come into being in that place. It's like if I was standing here with my back to you guys, and I just appeared there right now, my standpoint would be appearing here, and yours would be here, and unless you were making noise or something, I wouldn't know whether you had appeared or not. Or we could appear here at different times, and I wouldn't know whether you had been here or not unless you left little clues or whatever. So a standpoint means that becoming really is subjective in deciding what is relevant or not. It's closing out. It's closing out the view of everything. So this is where the idea of the universal becomes really important in Whitehead. I'm trying to think where we need to take a break, but a universal in a lot of philosophy and theology is something that's always true for everything in every place. But for Whitehead, there's nothing that's always true for everyone in every place. The way that the universe constitutes itself is actually different for every becoming in every place and time. So that what is universal, when he talks about universals, he's not talking about a truth that's true for every person, or it's not a truth that ignores difference. I guess that's how I would put it. What is universal is relativity, that we are made out of relations. That is the only universal for him. So we're made out of relations, and the means of that is creativity, and that's why he calls creativity the universal of universals, because it's the only thing that we have in common is relativity, and creativity is the process of how that relativity comes into being in particular times and places. You guys are being great because I'm actually going into this in a little bit more detail than sometimes I do, and so I just wanted to thank you for bearing with it. And let me see if there's anything else I want to hop on here before we go. Only that, oh, I gotta save it. Okay, I gotta save it. Yeah, it doesn't go with this, but it's my favorite thing in the book. So let's have a break and come back here at